You are tuned in to a unique edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, though, I am your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. And as you can tell, we're not in our typical podcasting room, and those technical difficulties that I was dealing with last night, well, it turns out it weren't technical difficulties in my own podcasting room. StreamYard is down, so we're doing this episode through Zoom, and I'm doing this episode from work. So we're still trying to make it work, and unfortunately, too, to add to maybe some of the disappointment, our Royals prospect we are planning to interview this afternoon had to reschedule again to next week. So plan for that. We'll give you an extra episode next week, but we'll just have the Mailbag Friday today. And if I miss anybody's question, just be sure to reach out to me on Twitter, and I will have that answer to you by the end of the week. Before we start today's show, though, I want to let you know that today's title sponsor is FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So get started today with FanDuel. So try to bear with me. I'm going to try to get to all these questions. I don't have my typical format, the layout to the right of me, because this will be on YouTube as well, but we won't have any pretty graphics that we usually had. So if I miss somebody's question, it is probably due to having to do this on Zoom and not on StreamYard. But we'll try our best here with question number one from DJ. How do you feel about this lineup? Michael leading off, Vinny hitting in the 2-hole, Bobby hitting 3, Cags 4, which gives him the protection with India hitting 5th. And then 6, you have Salvi, 7, Waters, 8, Freddie, and 9, Isbell. I would love to see Nick Lofton in the lineup moving forward, not just because he was one of the few guys to get going last night, but I feel that he has earned the opportunity to show what he's got. And Drew Waters maybe has regressed a little bit, maybe should turn into more of an every other day guy and not so much just a starter from, the beginning of the series all the way to the end of it. So I would love to see Nick Lofton in there. I'd be worried about Freddie Fermin getting a little bit overexposed, but I don't hate the shakeup at the top of the order. Jonathan India has been hitting well, leading off and playing second base every single day, but that would give Jack Caglione some more protection than he's getting right now. So I wouldn't hate it. I just feel the Royals have shaken up their lineup a bit, and that just goes back to last week. And I'd be pretty surprised if they shake it up again here in the near future. Next one is going to be coming from Jet. What are your opinions on the energy this team has? Feels like they aren't having fun. I don't feel that you're always going to be emitting that positive energy or you're going to be looking like you're having fun when you just got swept and when you've been losing baseball games. There's also a lot of even-keeled guys on the roster, though. They're not going to get too high and not get too low. But I have no doubt in my mind that when they start playing better, hopefully this weekend against the Athletics, you will see some of that fire and some of that passion come out. But that energy can't just be when they're playing well. They're going to have to find that energy even when they need to get going in a series where they're not playing that well. The next one is also coming from Jet here. Is Mark Canha getting more time than Lofton because we're getting ready to move on from him now that Cags is up? Lofton seems to bring more energy and has played well in his limited time. Well, I'm with you there. I mean, I feel that Nick Lofton has had a really good series, or last couple of series at that. And with Mark Canha, he's going to play against lefties until he's no longer on the roster, and he has been in a little bit of a rough stretch. But I don't get the sense they are going to be moving on from him unless they were to bring in another bat. So for now, I will say that Mark Canha will continue to play against lefties, but maybe we will see more of Nick Lofton moving forward. This one is coming from, might have to stall a little bit here because YouTube's a little bit screwed up now that I'm doing this on Zoom. This next question is going to be from Braden. Is Lawrence Butler or Heston Kjerstad the kind of route the Royals should take at the deadline, given they are younger and have controllable years? I believe that should be the case. Lawrence Butler is probably not available. He just signed an extension with the Athletics. Heston Kjerstad just got demoted. So if you feel that you can be his bounce-back destination, then by all means, I would say go and try to make a trade for him. But there will be those young, controllable bats out there, and that's what I imagine the Royals would be targeting if they are very active at the deadline. This one's from Logan. Say Taylor Ward isn't available at the deadline. What are your thoughts on trading for Lourdes Gurriel? No clue if Arizona would be willing to let him go, but I think he could be an option. He was somebody I wanted going back to the offseason when he was available in free agency. So in trading for Gurriel, you'd have to have Arizona take on a chunk of that contract, and that would result in you giving up more prospects. Not going to rule him out as a possibility, but I would say they're going to go for someone younger, again, if they are being uber aggressive at the deadline. The next question is going to be coming from, just want to make sure I didn't miss anything here on YouTube. And if I did, just respond below to this video whenever we get it posted at the very end. But that might have been all the questions that we did get on YouTube. So, yep, if I did miss it, just shoot me over a question either through Twitter or you can just respond to this YouTube video below. Let's jump over to Twitter here and get this question from Alex. Do you believe Alex Zumwalt is as bad of a hitting coach as Cal Eldred was as a pitching coach? I do not, and that's not to stay biased towards Zumwalt. Cal Eldred was completely in over his head as a pitching coach at the big league level. He was actively, making these pitchers regress. I mean, nobody was getting better. None of those younger arms were showing any signs of growth. I believe there's a reason he has not had another big league job following the Royals. With Zumwalt, maybe he's not the answer. He was the right move at the time. I thought he was a very bright mind in the front office, and he had playing experience, and he was able to relate to a lot of these players. But it is a results-driven game that you have here. And it's really that way in all sports, so I shouldn't say that's isolated to baseball. But it's what have you done for me lately? And so far this season, the Royals offense hasn't done much in any of these series outside of really St. Louis, it feels like. But I do not believe he's as bad as Cal Eldred. Some of this, too, is just the talent's not there with some of these guys. And some of the top players on your roster have to be hitting better, and that can't just be a fallback on the hitting coach. At times, they fall on the sword, but to me, some of the guys you have a lot of investment in, they need to be playing much better than they are right now. This one comes from Spoons. At what point does Q get blamed for simply not igniting the team? This team has zero fight and heart, and your team will always be a reflection of its manager, and this team is such a hard watch. I've gotten this question so many times before, and I want to make sure that I stay pretty consistent with what I've been saying for a while. Yes, a fiery manager is a good thing if the team responds well to it and you're winning games. Like Ned Yost was a mix of even-keeled, and then he also was a fiery guy when he needed to be. That also didn't result in wins every single year. It also depended on who he was getting fiery toward. And those 2014 and 15 Royals had some fiery guys and guys that were very intense. Not saying this team doesn't, but every time I've spoken to the players, whether it be at spring training or in the clubhouse, they love the way that Q manages. And because those guys are not fiery is not because they're bored and they don't care. It's how they play the game. I mean, Mike Matheny was an intense and fiery manager. The best season they had, they still lost 88 games, I believe it was. They won 74. That was the high mark there. So a fiery and intense manager doesn't necessarily equate to wins. I feel as fans, we try to push that whenever the team's not playing well because we go back to 14 and 15 and getting into a brawl or having that fire and that passion toward another team was resulting in wins. That team also had a lot of talent top to bottom, where this group feels very top heavy of where their talent comes from. This one is coming from DJ. Who is a better hitting coach, Alex Zumwalt or the hitting architect in Dale Swaim? I mean, if you're going off a track record, I thought Dale Swaim did a very good job as a bench coach, really, in Kansas City. Zumwalt, the feet aren't to the fire just yet. As I've been pretty open about in the past, you make a change, the hitting coach spot, if you feel he's not meshing with the players, and if you feel there's a perfect, replacement for him mid-season. Because if you're just saying fire him to fire him and give the responsibilities over to Keone Duren or somebody else to help with the hitters, then all right. But if you don't feel confident that solution is there right now, then there's no sense in firing the hitting coach. There's not just somebody sitting out there, in my opinion, that would be ready to come in, take over this team, and immediately show results over the final 90 to 95 games of the season. But I was always impressed with what Swain was able to do in his time in Kansas City. This one's from John. Still need a middle of the order bat. What will it take to get that bat? Yeah, the trade deadline questions will probably be pretty rampant in the comment section here. But I would say that, it depends on what bat you're going for. If you're going for Taylor Ward, it's going to be expensive. If you're going for Kyle Stowers or Jesus Sanchez, it's going to be expensive. It's all going to come down to where you're at that point. If the Royals go on a tear and they're on a surge and they're able to make a move, they got to be willing to part ways with some top prospects in their system. Hopefully nobody inside their top 5, but it also depends on what caliber of player that you would be bringing in. Okay, let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, still a lot of questions to get to next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. And if you skipped ahead and missed the first portion of our podcast and you're wondering why we don't have the pretty graphics, why we're in a different room, StreamYard is down, which ran into some problems last night. Wasn't able to get out an episode, and I'm doing this episode from work today, so bear with me, and hopefully the audio is fine when I go back to edit this whenever we wrap up all of our questions here. But before we move on to those next questions, I want to tell you about Trade Coffee. Let's be real. Coffee isn't just a drink. It's a ritual, a lifeline, and the thing that gets you from half asleep to fully functioning. And if that's essential, why settle for anything less than amazing? That's where Trade Coffee comes in. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got a roast that you'll love. So right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customer 50% off your 1-month free trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's TRADE.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off on your 1-month trial. So if you are a coffee fan, like myself, definitely try it out, and I don't think you'll be disappointed whatsoever. So get started today with your Trade Coffee. Our next set of questions is going to begin here with, looks like 13-year pro. Please just talk about the energy this team does not have and what the energy can do for the team. Again, as we brought up in one of our previous answers, energy can't just be a thing that comes out when you're winning baseball games. You got to have that energy, that intensity, that fire when you're trying to spark something. And that's going to begin tonight. It is a pivotal series against the Athletics at Kauffman Stadium this coming weekend. You've got a team that doesn't pitch well. They've got a terrible bullpen. They got a great offense, but it's a team that's won 6 games since May 6th. So this energy has to come out tonight. I thought it was going to be there for the Yankee series. It clearly was not. You got to create your own energy, even if you're not playing well. And I believe it can do wonders. Getting 1 win tonight, maybe you can have them headed in the right direction. Next one's coming from John Hall. Why is our hitting so bad with runners in scoring position? We talked to Q about this last night and to Vinny Pasquantino. Baseball is a funny sport because there's never that perfect answer. Like, why doesn't this team have more power? Why isn't Bobby Witt Jr. hitting the ball out of the yard more? Why isn't Salvador Perez doing that? Sometimes there is a direct answer. Oftentimes there's not. I'm going to go to the extreme side here, as I opened up my answer with. I don't believe there's ever a perfect answer because you play every single day. It can go up and down. And with runners in scoring position, I thought it was interesting that Vinny Pasquantino said last night, maybe I shouldn't say this, but we do feel the pressure. We are pressing, and everybody's pressing right now. And that is a great, honest answer. When you're looking for a reason why they're struggling and why they're not the same as they were last year, maybe we should have expected some of that regression. But also at the same time, it's a team that's pressing, knowing the offense is struggling, knowing they need to get it going, and some of these guys have to step up. But sometimes it just pops up out of nowhere. Like sometimes You just have a 20 to 30 game stretch where you're always driving everybody in. With this group, I'm not going to hold my breath, and I got to see it first before I can truly believe it. But maybe it is a little bit depressing, and I'll side with Vinny Pasquantino here. Maybe that is the perfect solution, the perfect answer as to why they're struggling. But sometimes it can flip, and hopefully it can flip in tonight's game against the Athletics. This one is from El Jefe. How are we feeling about 2026? Because this season is over. As I've said before, I'm never going to tell someone how to be a fan. I'm never going to tell someone to believe in this team or to give up on this team. They are 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. So, in my opinion, the season's not over. They need to get on a hot stretch. But if you are the fan that is World Series or bust, then yeah, maybe this team is just not cut out to get there or to even get to October. But as for 2026, I mean, they'll have another aggressive offseason, in my opinion. Maybe it wasn't as aggressive this past offseason, but I expect them to go after some guys that are available, on the offensive side of things. I expect them to try to replenish their bullpen and their rotation again. So I do feel good about 2026, but we're not even to the All-Star break just yet. If they fall 10 to 15 games under 500, then yeah, I believe you could start making that case of this is going to be a bit of a wash year and you look ahead to next year. But being 2.5 games out of a wild card spot, no, I'm not going to say that the season is over. Levi's question: how does Q pull Lugo at 73 pitches with a shutout going? He pulled him like we were in Game 7 in the World Series. Unbelievable. Well, I mean, it worked. Angel Serpa came in and didn't allow a run, so I can't really fault the decision there, and that was his reason. He had Cody Bellinger coming up. There was a runner in scoring position. He wanted to go to Serpa, and you play the matchups at that point. If it works out, I'm not going to fight it. I don't care if he pulled him at 60 pitches because the Royals pitching was not the problem last night. It was the fact the offense didn't score any runs. Next one is coming from Jerry. I think our number one offensive issue is that we aren't seeing enough pitches per at bat. So many 2-pitch outs, and because of that, we barely get any walks. Your thoughts? Sorry for sending a question every week. Never apologize for sending a question every single week. We love getting as many questions as possible here on this episode. I believe that is a cause, and that is a philosophy the Royals have had forever. Even good Royals teams, they value putting the ball in play over the walks. They want to be aggressive. They want to ambush, and even guys that came in seeing a lot of pitches elsewhere, they tend to be more aggressive when they get to the Royals. And yeah, when you're not going well, there's a reason you're not going well because pitchers are taking advantage of that and exploiting that. And those early count outs are going to put you in stretches like this. Unfortunately for the Royals, it's been a season-long stretch and not just a week or two. Next one is from Levi again. Where is the backbone with this team? Seems there are too many nice guys with zero dog in them. Have to think Q's laid-back personality does not help. It's just brutal to watch. Again, I will maybe not give you the same answer, but, you know, you can have a fiery guy. Like, you can have a fire starter in the clubhouse, and the manager's not going to screw with that. Matt Quatraro is a laid-back guy, and from all accounts, his philosophy is very well received by the players. Like, these are not 15 to 16-year-old high schoolers that need someone to scare them. I love Bull Durham and, Kevin Costner, Crash Davis saying we need to scare them a little bit. These are all kids. Those are minor leaguers too in the movie, and it's also Hollywood. But at the big league level, you're dealing with adults. And when you're dealing with adults, as any manager, any boss outside of the game of baseball would try to do, is relate to those players. How can I get the best out of you? If getting the best out of you is screaming in your face and trying to light a fire under your ass, then all right. If getting the best out of you is having the calm demeanor and almost the Zen approach, then I'm going to stick with that. And last year it did work. And I feel if you asked a lot of these players why they like Matt Quatraro, it's because he's got that even-keeled approach. I will also say this, and this goes beyond, my experience with the team. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. Just because we don't see it on the field or in the dugout doesn't mean it doesn't happen behind closed doors. That's a tight clubhouse in there. And I don't mean tight as in nervous or anxious. They've got guys that do have that fire and do have that passion. They're just not always going to display it on the field when things aren't going well. Instead, they're not going to over dramatize a situation. We've seen Q get fired up and pissed off before. It's just not his style. But I will stay true to the fact that just because you're a fiery manager Doesn't make you a good one. Mike Matheny was a very fiery and intense manager, and those Royals teams were never good. This one's from Eli. Tough question, but if JJ Picollo hired you as a consultant to the franchise, what would be the first thing you'd push to change? Organizational philosophy, staff roster, trade, free agency, stadium, or other ideas? Can be as major as minor as you want. That's a great question, and yes, a tough one, but I love tough questions here on a Mailbag Friday. If I was a consultant, I would really try to get down to the crux of this, hitting development. Not that I would have any better ideas. I didn't play at that level, so I'm sure I wouldn't have the best answers. And I'm sure they're also trying to identify maybe why some of these hitters in the minor leagues aren't progressing in the way they are, and the pitchers are having a phenomenal time doing it. That would be the next thing for this, because that allows you as a small market team to pick and choose where you want to spend and where you want to trade. If you can draft and develop pitchers and hitters, it's everybody's dream. Unfortunately, though, when you're as good at developing pitchers as the Royals are, you can't always have both. But I would like to see a little bit more success in developing those minor league hitters. I'm not talking about the big league level right now. I'm talking about getting guys like Gavin Cross going, getting the Carson Rockeforts going. When Blake Mitchell's healthy, making sure you completely polish his game, making sure the Tyler Gentrys and the John Raves and the Cam Devaney's, the older prospects, they can take that success in AAA and bring it to the big league level. So those would be my answers there as to what I would try to change. And then, yeah, being there for the trade deadline, I would love to see what type of names I could throw around as a consultant. Okay, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll wrap up our episode next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, coming to you not live, just pre-recording this from my office here at work. I'm doing this on Zoom and not a StreamYard, but fingers crossed next Monday, everything will be working back smoothly and we won't have any more issues and we will be able to have that Royals prospect on for an interview. Before our final set of questions, want to tell you about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are wrapping up and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's game-winning shots or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And for my pick, I'm going to take the over on point total for Tyrese Halliburton. I will also take the over on rebound total for Pascal Siakam. And I will take the Thunder money line, though, to even up this series at 2 apiece. Our final set of questions is going to begin here with Andrew. At what point do we pivot to become sellers for the season? Obviously not full reset, but get some guys and prospects. I assume this was going to be the most common question today. And I would say this about being a seller. If you are going to be a seller and you want to go after prospects, well, that is fine. And I feel that if you got the right players, you would feel pretty successful at the deadline. You also have to understand that you brought in certain guys and you called up certain guys and told them, we're going to be aggressive and we're going to try to get back to the postseason and have another shot at winning the American League and, better yet, winning the World Series. What a lot of these free agents have said in coming to Kansas City was that they love that type of pressure. They love that type of push of, we're going to reward you for putting in a good season. Now, if the Royals are 15 games under 500 nearing the deadline, then yeah, you got to sell. And the players can take responsibility of, we just didn't do our job. But they just called up Jack Caglione, right? So they are trying to push to make this team better. And if they are 3 games out of a wild card spot at the deadline, maybe you go not all in. I don't believe they're going to go all in, but you acquire players that can help you this year and next year. So you're still trying to make a push, but you're also trying to better next year's team. And I don't believe they always have to be prospects. They can be 24, 25, 26-year-old guys that have years of control with other organizations. And you can try to better your team that way. But to sell, I think that sends a message to your team if you're a few games out of a wild card spot that we don't believe in you and you're not good enough. And next go around in free agency are trying to lock up players. they're going to remember that, wow, he didn't believe that we could do it, but also players could understand we didn't put ourselves in a good enough spot to get it done. But as for being sellers, I don't see it happening unless they are really at an uphill battle around the deadline, 8, 9 games back of a wild card spot where maybe it's just better to sell. This one's from Danny. Have other teams just caught on to the Royals' approach at the plate, or are the hitting issues completely self-inflicted? So many fly balls and no power. I always believe they're going to be more of a contact team and not a power team. It's just the way they're built for that stadium. The aggressive approach, though, it can only work when you're red hot. And maybe they have made some adjustments there and they are exploiting it. Or maybe this team is just in a season long rut right now and they need to get going somehow in some way. Whether that be bringing in another player to add to this lineup, Bobby Witt Jr. hitting with more authority than he has in the last month, getting everybody on the same page at the same time. But I'm sure that last year pitchers adjusted to that philosophy. The Royals were just playing through it and being maybe even more patient or doing more damage when they were ambushing some of those first pitch fastballs. This one is from Kurt. We'll have to go a little bit quicker here. The Royals seem very poor at helping their pitchers stay healthy lately. Last year now looks like a lucky anomaly with health. Can they do more to help their guys get and stay healthy? Or am I just a victim of recency bias and every team faces the amount of pitching injuries? It might be a little bit of recency bias. I mean, I do believe last year was an anomaly. They were extraordinarily healthy for the entirety of that year. This year, this haven't been as fortunate. But this happens across baseball. These guys prep, they do conditioning, they do everything possible to keep their bodies in shape. Sometimes you just have injuries, and that's baseball. You're playing every single day, your body wears down, and it happens. There's really nothing you can do to constantly have great years of great health. There are teams that just avoid it, but at times you do just have to have a little bit of luck and having a clean bill of health for an entire season. This one from Big Daddy. Chances of a Seth Lugo trade, you could get a middle of the order bat or top prospect, something like Kierstad or Mayo from Baltimore. They could look into it, but again, unless they are definitive sellers, I don't see it happening. I feel they're going to keep Seth Lugo here. But if they're 10, 15 games under 500, then yeah, you might need to look into moving Seth Lugo because he's going to be a free agent next year anyway. This one is from Chevy. What are realistic expectations for this team going forward? With this current group, I still believe they can hang around, right? I still believe they can, in the middle of a weird American league, because there are the Tigers and Yankees, and then everybody else is just jammed up in the middle. You could add the Astros at the top of the group with the Yankees and the Tigers. But the Rays, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Rangers, Guardians, Twins, they're all going to be in it the majority of this year. So right now, I believe this team can stay in it. But until they make another move, they're probably bound for an 82 and 80 season, or maybe 83 and 79. They need to find about 5 extra wins to get to that high 80 total, and that should be good enough to get them into the postseason. This one's from Bobblehead Redo Guy. What are your thoughts on Zumwalt or hearing anything on the Royals moving on from him during the season? Seems like he's had enough time to prove it in the coaching system. I've always liked Alex Zumwalt. I believe he's an incredibly bright mind. I believe the players get along with him. But, if this team continues to struggle all the way into the first half, maybe you do need to have a little bit of a shift there. But you have to be so sure that that next guy can truly help you. If you don't have that guy, there's no sense in making a move midseason. And no, I have not heard anything of them wanting to move on from him despite this slow start to the season. Bobby Witt Jr. is the GOAT's question. What would your solution be if they actually listen to the anonymous fans and demands on Twitter and YouTube to fire Alex Zumwalt? And that's the thing. If they fired Alex Zumwalt, I'd imagine they would just promote Keone Durant, who's the assistant hitting coach right now. There's just nobody sitting out there that you would bring in to hire. That's the way they'd go about it. When they fired Terry Bradshaw and promoted Alex Zumwalt, it's always somebody in-house. And with the way that AAA has gone this year and AA, I'm not sold that one of those guys could also be the perfect solution for the big league roster and its struggles. This one's from Curtis. I heard Q say last night that the hitters are working hard before games, but the hard work obviously isn't producing much of anything as they near the bottom of the MLB in offense, especially with runners in scoring position. In your opinion, why can't they do anything with runners in scoring position? I'll revert back to or go back to one of my questions earlier in the episode. They're pressing right now. And I believe they know about the struggles. They're not dumb. They know what's being said. They know the numbers and where they're at. They go over it in hitters meetings and stuff like that. So I would say that this team is just pressing, and they are so aggressive, and hitters take advantage of that. When there's a runner at third and one out, they know they're going to be aggressive, and pitchers are trying to throw to those guys differently. And until they lay off those pitches, they're not going to get the best pitches to hit to drive in those runs. So I believe it's a combination of all of those things. This one's from Tom. What are the chances the Royals even pick up Salvi's option for 2026 at this point? Is there a real chance as his last year in Kansas City? I won't rule that out. I certainly believe it's a possibility. But I feel the Royals and Salvador Perez want to end things on good terms. Sometimes, though, in baseball, it's after a bad year and you don't pick up that option. But I imagine Salvi still wants to play, and maybe the Royals want to honor that just in a different role next year. We'll see, though, if he can turn things on in the second half. Craig's question, what's more likely? Royals make the playoffs or they finish last in the division? My bet is the latter. Royals make the playoffs. They are not going to be worse than the Chicago White Sox this year. They are, I believe, at this point in time, which is also why I said like 8 or 9 games is a lot to overcome. The White Sox are playing better right now. They're also still an incredibly inexperienced team. They are 11 games over the White Sox at this point. They are not going to finish last. We're falling into a little bit of the panic and the over dramatizing at this really bad stretch. It takes a couple of series wins in a row or a couple of wins in a row to change the perception of it. Riley's question, why do we watch more pitches down the pipe than anyone else? This team's approach blows. I did notice that a bit more, and maybe that's overcompensating for the aggressiveness, that they're trying to see more pitches, but sometimes pitchers are being aggressive in the zone to them. They got to do damage with those pitches, though. Vinny said that last night in the clubhouse of when you're getting those first pitch fastballs and they're down the middle, you got to be swinging. Even if it does result in an out, that's not a bad process, and hopefully the results can improve soon. This one's from Kingdom Cave. When does Zumwalt get canned? It feels like it's a change that needs to happen. Again, a lot of questions on Zumwalt today. If you feel you got the answer, if you feel you got the solution, then you can make that move, especially if he's not meshing with the players. But I haven't got any indication of that, not last year, not 2023, and definitely not this year. Sawyer's question, where do we go from here? Where do you go from here? Win tonight. Win a series, maybe even sweep a series. Feels like it's been forever since the Royals have won 3 straight against any team. Perfect time to do it with the Athletics in town, who've only won 6 games since May 6th. And lastly, Chance from our very own Royals postcast, when will the pain stop? I'll double down on that tonight. Let's say the pain stops tonight. I'll pick the Royals to win. Maybe I'm an optimist and I'm going to get burned. Luis Severino on the bump for the Athletics, and it'll be Michael Wacha going for the Royals. Well, that'll do it for our very unique edition of a Mailbag Friday on Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We will be off this weekend, of course. We'll be bringing you those 60-second YouTube shorts. But until Monday for hopefully a clean and easy week, not dealing with any StreamYard issues or connection issues, you take it easy, Kansas City.